Rittenhouse. the piss a lot of y'all off, maybe. I don't know. I know a lot of y'all are tired of having this conversation, but I found this interesting. So he did his first interview with Tucker Carlson, and he said something very interesting in this. Now, I think a lot of you know what it's going to be, but bear with me as I play it, because he makes a very good point here, and I have a story to back up his point. So, but before I play you the video, I want to preface it by saying that I know a lot of the conversations I've had around the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, and I still maintain my position. I feel the correct verdict was made with Kyle Rittenhouse. I feel like if you watch the video, it was clear self-defense. However, I still maintain my position that if Kyle Rittenhouse was black, he wouldn't have made it to court because he would be face down on the street dead after running towards police with an AR-15. I wholeheartedly believe that shit. And the responses I would get to that from Kyle Rittenhouse, like hardcore defenders, like his nut huggers, basically. Oh, they'll send you like these specific stories and everything, like, oh, this guy didn't get shot, this guy did this and the third. Now, those specific stories, I'm actually going to be covering that on Wednesday. I might do a little short stream on Wednesday just to call, point out the fallacies in those stories, because it's very interesting. They'll send you those stories, but it seems like they just read the headline and didn't read the full article. But to Kyle's own point, Kyle disproves everything those people are saying, because listen to what he has to say right here.
I'm not a racist person. I support the BLM movement. I support peacefully demonstrate.
So right there, I feel like a lot of people's heads blew up on both sides of the aisle. Like, you had the fucking leftists that, that are painting him as this white supremacist, he hates black people. The people that still believe that everybody he shot was black, their heads exploded. Then you had the fuck BLM Proud Boys. Well, not just the Proud Boys. I'm not saying like, I'm not trying to lump everybody into being Proud Boys, but more of like the right conservative Trump MAGA people that are on the fuck BLM wave and all that shit. Their heads exploded. Like, again, there's no nuance in the conversations we're having right now. There's no nuance in people's, opinions on these situations, and people that are supposed to analyze and be analysts in these situations, which I feel analysts are usually full of shit anyway. I'm an analyst. I should know. It's like, nah, I'm just a guy in this. I'm just a guy, doing this shit out of my basement, man. I'm nothing special. So, but I feel like a lot of people's heads exploded when he said this, but the more interesting part was what he said after this that I found interesting.
And I believe there needs to be change. I believe there's a lot of prosecutorial misconduct, not just in my case, but in other cases. And it's just amazing to see how much a prosecutor can take advantage of somebody. Like, if they did this to me, imagine what they could have done to a person of color who doesn't maybe have the resources I do, or is not widely publicized like my case.
That was wild. And the person that tweeted this video out, which I should actually like and retweet this. I'm an asshole. I'm a Twitter asshole. Kyle Rittenhouse basically said that a black man in his same situation probably would be found guilty because of prosecutorial misconduct and not having access to an elite defense team. Jesus Christ. And more heads exploded. But the reason why he's right is because of the story that I'm about to show you right now. So this is the story of Keith Davis Jr. The many trials of Keith Davis Jr. Prosecutors have tried Davis Jr. 4 times for the same murder without sustaining a single conviction. Incarcerated since June 2015, Davis remains in jail awaiting a 5th trial while his wife fights for his freedom. This is written by Ron Cassie, and this is from the Baltimore. I'm sorry about that. I cut out the. This is BaltimoreMagazine.com. All right. Taking cover inside a cramped, dark auto repair garage, Keith Davis Jr., in what he believed were the last moments of his life, somehow desperately got his girlfriend on his cell phone as 4 Baltimore police officers tried to kill him. Bullets ripped into tool cabinets, steel beams, the shop's office, and bathroom doors. the concrete wall at the back of the building, and a refrigerator that Davis had ducked behind. More than 30 shell casings from 40 caliber Glock 22 service weapons lay scattered across the alley in front of the shop and its garage floor. Already shot in his back and through his right arm, a police bullet had just struck then 23-year-old Keith Davis Jr. in the face, fracturing his cheek and sinus cavity and shattering his jaw. Fragments from the bullet lodged in the back of his neck. At her home in Randallstown, Kelly Davis was still in bed. She and Keith, who had been dating for several months, had been texting and talking throughout the night and much of the morning. Whatever mistakes Keith Davis Jr. has made in his life, calling his then girlfriend, now wife, Kelly, was not one of them. In January 2016, 7 months, so she was on the phone with him as he got shot. That was part of the article that I had clipped out, because it was kind of like interesting the way he wrote the article just from a writing perspective. But yeah, so in January 2016, 7 months after surviving that barrage of police gunfire inside Big Herb's auto repair, Keith Davis Jr. was found not guilty of the armed robbery when the driver repeated what he'd said all along. The cops chased and shot the wrong guy. How many times have we heard that? Davis, who just bought a pack of cigarettes from a convenience store, had run with others when someone yelled "gun," dashing across Reisterstown Road into Big Herb's alley garage shortly before going to court. Prosecutors had dropped the most serious charges, the counts of firing a weapon at police. Kelly thought her nightmare was coming to a close. Oh, sorry, guys. Instead, days after Davis's acquittal, the city state's attorney's office, without a hint to Davis, his family, Kelly, or his defense attorney since his shooting by police, indicted him for murder in a seemingly unrelated slaying of a Pimlico security guard 5 hours before the hack driver had been robbed. Kevin Jones had been brutally shot 11 times, including in his mouth and head, while walking to work across the racetrack's parking lot. To date, the state's attorney's office has failed 4 times to convict Davis of the same murder. Incarcerated ever since he was moved from Sinai to Central Booking with shrapnel still in his neck, Davis now awaits a 5th murder trial set for May. That prosecutors dropped the charge of shooting at police, lost the armed robbery case, and are now 0 for 4 on the homicide charge is not surprising. In 2018, the Civilian Review Board recommended suspending 2 officers and terminating 2 others involved in the Davis shooting for their excessive use of force and the serious discrepancies and lack of credibility in their testimony. One of the first 2 officers on the scene, Catherine Filippo, later resigned when it was revealed the FBI was investigating her alleged involvement in a drug trafficking ring. But Blue Lives Matter. This sounds like, just that last part, this case actually is very similar to Meek's, aside from Meek didn't get shot by the police. But a lot of the cops, the reason why Meek's case was called back into question was because the cops that arrested him were dirty, crooked cops. And according to Meek's story, and they also use excessive force. I remember when he was telling the story in the documentary, in his documentary, they literally used his face as a battering ram when they raided his home and things like that. So they saw him out on the street. He had his headphones on. He was rapping and shit like that. And they ran up on him. The cops beat him when he was on the street. And then they went in to raid his house or search his house or whatever. And they literally used his face as a battering ram. So, and that was in Philly. To say there have been other red flags in the 5 Davis trials is an understatement. To name a few, the state's introduction of a professional jailhouse informant, a discredited drug cartel enforcer. At the 2nd murder trial, the state's accidental disclosure of surveillance video during the 3rd murder trial, and the strange action and contradictory testimony of not just the police at the scene, but lead detective Mark Vini. who inexplicably did not turn victim Kevin Jones's 2 cell phones over to evidence collection for 11 months. Sorry, guys. Let me take a drink real quick. Feeney's testimony has been so shaky throughout the trials, including the investigation of a fictitious BPD investigator, that he was not called to the stand by prosecutors at the most recent trial, but by the defense. Holden's statements regarding the gun used to rob him will become critical when the subsequent murder allegation was made against Davis. Holden's description, now Holden is the guy, the driver, the hack driver that they said he robbed. Holden's description, and he made it clear he was familiar with handguns after decades hacking in the city, is very different from the distinctive multicolored wood-handled Swiss-made target shooting pistol police say they found near Davis after rendering him unconscious on the garage floor, after they shot him in his fucking face. Yeah. After they tried to kill him, and they probably thought he was dead. I'm sorry, guys. Whew, that mucus, man. I feel better. It's just the phlegm and everything. It sucks. But yeah. This is the interesting part. This is why people say fuck the police. This is why people have no respect for cops at all. Yeah, I feel like even some of the people who are Blue Lives Matter don't respect cops. They just don't fuck with BLM. I genuinely feel that. Bro, cops are super unpopular in this fucking country, bro. Like, bro, cops are seen as squares, as lames, assholes, dickheads. Bro, nobody, like, who likes cops? Except cops, other cops, and the family of those cops. I feel like even some of those cops' families probably don't like them. And look, I know police officers myself. I don't hate those cops because I've known them in my lives. But I also think in the back of my mind, like, how do they treat the people that's not their family or their friends? Like, you can't just say that's not my husband. My husband's a cop, so I know cops aren't like this, because you don't even know how your own family member who is a cop treats the people that he comes in contact with, depending on what neighborhood, what community he's in. Because again, I grew up, for the most part in the suburbs, and some of the cops here, were like, I've run into like one or two douchebag cops, but for the most part, I've had positive interactions with cops. Me personally, there's been a couple times where I should have been in trouble, hauled off to jail, and I was let go. So I've had positive interactions with cops, but you got to recognize I recognize I'm in a certain community and neighborhood. If I was in my old neighborhood in Philly, or if I was in my old neighborhood in DC, and I did those same occurrences happen, that happened here, happened there, it would be a completely different situation. And I feel like people don't recognize that. And that's something that has to be taken into account, in my opinion. But this is what I found interesting, like just how blatant they already, like, in previously in the clips I showed you before, they already showed themselves to be fucking liars. But this right here, my bad, this right here just takes the fucking cake to me. Notably, the last known owner of the imported target shooting pistol testified he had consigned it years before to either Otto's Police Supply or Bart's Sports World, both in Glen Burnie, something of a collector's item. The model had been discontinued in the mid-2000s. My understanding was it was sold. Gun collector Ronald Gorman told the jury, adding, both gun shops are popular among local cops. So that means the cops probably placed the fucking gun and said he fired at us. That's not even probably. That's exactly what happened. They said he fired at them, and that's why they shot. But another part, we're going to get to that. That doesn't make sense based upon another part that we're going to get to. But another eyewitness, admittedly drinking brown liquor that morning, had fled the garage when Davis ran in with police in chase. She told police she saw Davis holding a black square gun, a description that could apply to a phone. During questioning, Martina Washington also blurted out the armed robbery trial that police have been trying to influence her responses. They keep saying all the stuff to you and telling you what they want you to say, she said. For that matter, the description of the handgun that Officer Lane Eskin said he saw during his initial pursuit of a suspect who likely did rob Holden doesn't match the pistol that police say they recovered. It matches Holden's description of a silver gun. Ultimately, the charges that Davis fired a weapon at police were dropped. Why? Because the only shell casings recovered in and around Big Herb's auto repair were from police service weapons. And place a big asterisk here in regards to the murder of Kevin Jones some 5 hours earlier. The gun, the police who shot the police who shot Davis say they recovered atop the refrigerator where he'd been seeking cover. The Hammerly pistol they have at various times charged him with using to stick up the unlicensed cabbie firing at them and shooting Kevin Jones 11 times had not been fired that day. Not one time. That was the testimony of the BPD ballistics examiner at the armed robbery trial. Not only was the magazine empty, no gun residue was present. Keith Davis Jr. has maintained, so they're on top of that, they're dumb with their cover up. They're idiots. They're morons. On top of that, Keith Davis Jr. has maintained the pistol was planted. Whether you're inclined to believe that or not, it's not even about inclined. That's what the evidence is pointing to. Inclined to believe that or not probably comes down to your familiarity with the facts of the case and the recent history of the Baltimore Police Department known to be fucking corrupt. Even Marvel showed them to be fucking corrupt. They were about to fuck up Falcon in the show. And that was some pandering Marvel bullshit, but still, they showed you what Baltimore police really like. And you had a lot of like conservatives and shit like that, like, oh, they just had to show the police. I'm like, nah, Baltimore, that's how BPD get down, bro. Yo, trust me. Now, I've had bad encounters with Baltimore police. I remember one time, when my mom moved. So I live in Delaware. Like I said, I live in the suburbs of Delaware. My mom got married and she moved back to DC. I was going down to see her and I got lost and I ended up in Baltimore. And I pulled up to a 7-Eleven. I had a cop run up on me, almost pulled his gun out on me. And so yeah, I'm like, yeah, where are you going? What are you doing here? This, that, and the third, Sir, I just went in to get a drink. I'm lost. And I had to get a phone charger too, because I left my phone charger at the house so I could charge my phone in the car. Charging my phone. And I'm on my way. I'm going to see my mom in DC. Things like that. So yeah, BPD, that's how they get down, bro. Yo, I be trying to explain that to some white people that haven't been to a lot of these, neighborhoods, these communities and shit like that, man. Like, y'all go to Philly out there and party and shit and go to the clubs and everything, and y'all go to Baltimore and DC, but it's, bro, you like, police don't play in these black neighborhoods, in these cities. I be trying to tell niggas this shit and tell white people this shit, but blue lives matter. But yeah. Whether the city should expend resources for more trials is a whole other question. So not only are they depriving this man of true justice and releasing him to be with his family and move on with his fucking life after this traumatic event that their cops put him through. I believe they said one of the cops is even at a different like a Lancaster police station now or something like that, which is wild to me. There's still allowed to be cops. Go figure. I do believe that cops are one of the few jobs that should not have a union, man, because they're one of the few unions that have a dominant power aside from the jab stuff that's been going on recently. But in every other area, they have more power than every other labor union. They literally get to kill people and get away with it. These politicians are afraid of their unions. Bruh, Biden out here signing police trauma bills and shit like that. Yeah, nah, B, nah. The Keith Davis Jr. case is one more example that prosecutors are too powerful, Carter continues. There's too much discretion and too little accountability. Look at how hard we've worked to bring new tools forward to hold police accountable. We need to start working this session on possible legislation around how to hold prosecutors. Yeah, the whole justice system is fucked, bro. So you see how they but that to me, the police is still shooting niggas and putting and planting weapons and shit. That shit you talking about, the tools, they not working, bruh. Yo, because they working around it. Now they may be using the prosecutor to do that, but again, they don't have that fear of the tools to keep them in check in the first place. So I don't know, man. I don't know. That's wild too. This is a wild story though, but it's crazy because this is exactly what Kyle was talking about. Kyle Rittenhouse was talking about, and that's exactly what it is, bro. He was saying somebody that don't have the means that I had, you know, that their case isn't as public as mine. I found out about this because, you know, Max B, aka Fax Blumenthal, y'all know him as Max Blumenthal, but I call him Fax over here. He was talking about this on his Twitter and everything. So that's how I found out about it. But it's just it like that shit is wild. That shit is wild. But again, you know, in this pursuit to pursue this delusion that America is this, you know, fair and just equal country, and that, you know, the system work, it doesn't. That's the fucking problem. It doesn't. Whether it's the fucking justice system, whether it's the fucking economic system, the political system, it doesn't fucking work for the people. It don't. It's broken. I wouldn't even say it's broken. I would say it's working the way it's supposed to. Straight up. So I just found that to be an interesting case, and they also have a website. Let me go ahead and show that to y'all. They got a website here for him. It's KeithDavisJr.com, and it takes you through his story and everything. Basically, what I just told you in that article, but we can read through it together. In June of this is the story of Keith Davis Jr. This story could be any one of our stories. In June of 2015, an innocent Keith Davis Jr. was cornered by police in a West Baltimore garage, where they shot at him 44 times, striking him 3 times. Once in the face, the back, and the arm. Although Keith Davis Jr. miraculously survived, he's endured several trials, no lasting convictions, and years of incarceration. Baltimore State Attorney Marilyn Mosby protected the officers who shot Keith and then prosecuted Keith for crimes he did not commit. For more than 5 years, Keith has been the victim of inconsistent testimony, tampered evidence, and unjust trials. So this is even worse, more rampant corruption than fucking Kyle Rittenhouse's case. Exactly what he was talking about. Keith Davis Jr. is not a convicted murderer. January 2016, armed robbery trial, acquittal. Keith was acquitted of 15 charges, as every eyewitness described a man that was not Keith. The jury only found Keith guilty of constructive possession, the crime of being near a gun. Remember, the gun was never fired, and as the article previously told you, more than likely planted by the fucking police. What started as a case of mistaken identity has turned into a miscarriage of justice by state's attorney Marilyn Mosby's office, resulting in 5 trials, 2 mistrials, 1 acquittal, 2 overturned verdicts, and a 6th trial to begin in May of 2022. So this is May 2017. This is the first. This is murder trial 1. This was a mistrial. The first murder trial ended in a hung jury with 11 jurors voting not guilty. The only known witness to the murder, who died before trial, consistently gave a description that did not match Keith. October 2017, murder trial 2, overturned. The second murder trial returned a guilty verdict that was later overturned by the judge at sentencing when she learned the prosecutor's key witness, a professional jailhouse informant, was introduced into the trial without providing the defense, the jury, or the judge herself with the true background on the informant. June 2018, murder trial number 3, mistrial. The third trial ended with a hung jury. In this trial, a surveillance video suddenly appears that showed the murder victim immediately before his death and a suspect. The state withheld this video in all prior trials, claiming that it had no value. Suddenly, in this trial, it not only had value, but the state now claimed that the video shows Keith. February 2020, murder trial 4, overturned. The fourth murder trial ended in a guilty verdict that was later overturned due to the judge refusing to allow the appropriate and required pretrial questioning requested by the defense. Flimsy evidence and inconsistent testimony. Inconsistent and false testimony from police and flimsy evidence has led to one acquittal, 2 mistrials, and 2 overturned verdicts. Multiple juries have either acquitted or overturned verdicts in his case, and yet Marilyn Mosby continues to try everything to convict Keith Davis Jr. The gun they claimed Keith used in the murder was never fired. Why does this matter? It is not possible for a gun that was never fired to commit a murder via shooting. The state's own experts acknowledged that the gun was never fired. No gun residue was ever found inside of the suspected murder weapon, and the only bullets and casings from the garage were from police-issued weapons. This is an excerpt, Miss Frances Williams. And is your conclusion that all the cartridge cases that you provided in this case belong to police officer-issued service weapons? Mr. Waxter. They were all fired with them. Yes, ma'am. Do you have any evidence whatsoever that indicates the K5 was fired? That's the gun they say he had. No, ma'am. That was the answer of Mr. Waxter. Problem number 2. The fingerprint analysis apparently tying Keith to the gun was completed in only 6 minutes. Why does this matter? The fingerprint analyst testifies that she leaves her office, goes to evidence control to retrieve the gun, returns to her office, conducts an elaborate process that involves manually tracing the fingerprint loops in an all but impossible 6 minutes. Later, she remarks that she has no notes to describe this process. And this is the excerpt again. And so after looking at all of these things, you packaged it up and you took it. Was the evidence room where you got this from on the same floor as your office? Miss Stasic. It's not. The firearms unit is 1 floor below the latent print unit. Mr. Northrup. So you had to take it downstairs? Miss Stasic. Yes, Mr. Northrup. And you signed it back in, or you returned it, correct? Miss Stasic. Correct. Mr. Northrup. And all of this between when you signed it out, you looked at the gun, took the lifts, resealed it, took it back downstairs. You did all this in 6 minutes. Miss Stasic. I received the gun at 11:34. Mr. Northrup. Right. And I took it back down. Right. 6 minutes. Mr. Northrup. You took it back down to Miss Ingerton in the firearms unit, correct? Miss Stasic. Yes. Mr. Northrup. And you received it at 11:34. You signed it out and you returned it at 11:40. Yes, I did. This is wild, bro. No DNA evidence linked Keith Davis and Kevin Jones. Why does this matter? Despite repeated DNA tests, there is no DNA test that links Keith Davis Jr. to Kevin Jones. During the trials, the state infers that there is no DNA evidence in this case that is a link. That is simply untrue. The state infers that there is DNA evidence in this case, and that is and in this case that is a link, but that is simply untrue. So this is Miss Frances Williams. Is there any item that you tested that revealed any contribution from Keith Davis that also had Kevin Jones on it? Miss Slatko. Not that I tested. Miss Frances Williams. Was there any item tested in any of those reports? The court. I'm sorry, did you say from Miss Frances Williams? Tested. The court. Anything that she tested that had Jones and Davis? Miss Frances Williams. Correct. The court. Okay. Miss Slatko. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? The court. I'm sorry. Miss Frances Williams. Was there any item tested that had both Keith Davis and Kevin Jones's DNA on it? Miss Slatko. No. And it gets worse. In reviewing court transcripts, interviews, and other relevant documents, we've uncovered 209 problems and lies made during the trials of Keith Davis Jr.'s case that prove his innocence. And like I said, it's a lot of things here, man. Like the gun was never discharged, yet Keith was charged with illegal discharge of the fire. I'm looking at the red ones right now. But the state argues that Eshkins believed that Keith shot at the officers, but it was a ricochet. The state's attorney says that Kevin Jones was already dead when they arrived. That's not true. The state repeats the lie that his DNA is on the Ravens bag. Videos were shown are introduced into the court. After the video is suddenly introduced, the prosecutor then notes that it actually isn't a video related to this case and that she has not even looked at the video before. The first time the defense even saw the video that is supposedly the linchpin of the case is during the third murder trial, literally in the middle of the trial. This is wild, bro. There's so much shit here. So I would recommend going to this website. Like I said, this is KeithDavisJr.com. Go on there. If you can afford to donate to help him out, man, it says take action. Let me see what it says to do. Volunteer. That's what it says. So I don't know if they got, obviously share his story. I'm going to do that. Obviously, I'm doing it here on my platform. Volunteer if you can, guys, if you're in the Baltimore area. Call Marilyn Mosby. Hit her up. That's her number right there, 443-984-6000. So, this is the mayor, Brandon Scott, who's a black man. This is fucking wild too. This is wild. But let me see who was shorty. This is wild, bro. Wow. She's black too. Wow. Folks, skin folk ain't always your kinfolk. Real talk. Skin folk ain't always your kinfolk. So yeah, definitely hit those two numbers up. Let them know how you feel. I'm definitely going to do that. You can tell Mayor Scott to immediately address the deficiencies within the Baltimore City Police Department to ensure that this never happens to anyone else ever again. He's just going to get the treatment that fucking Bill de Blasio's bitch ass got. He's going to sit there and let them bully him. He like a lot of these mayors and like state officials are fucking cucks to the police departments because they're afraid of them. They have a lot of power. These police unions have a lot of power. That's why it's very hard to get change right now. And in turn, when it comes to reforming the police and addressing police brutality. Demand Marilyn Mosby to stop the wrongful prosecution to keep. So definitely, like I said, go to this website. I expect, all of y'all motherfuckers that, was defending. I'm one of them. That's why I'm covering this story. That was defending Kyle. Show this story the same fucking love. And to the people watching this shit, send this to those people. This isn't a tit for tat. Because I like Matt Orfalea. I still watch his channel. I fuck with Matt Orfalea. Y'all already know I fuck with Jimmy Dore. I fuck with a lot of, most of the people, Glenn Greenwald. But send this to them too, because this is important too. So tweet this at them. I want to tweet this at them too. But yeah, because this is crazy. Again, I'm covering it because this is exactly what Kyle was talking about. Let's play that video again for Kyle Rittenhouse. This is exactly what he said.
I'm not a racist person. I support the BLM movement. I support peacefully demonstrating.
That right there, though, still.
I'm not a racist person. I support the BLM movement.
Heads exploded on both sides, like I said.
Support peacefully demonstrating. And I believe there needs to be change. I believe there's a lot of prosecutorial misconduct, not just in my case, but in other cases. And it's just amazing to see how much a prosecutor can take advantage of somebody. Like, if they did this to me, imagine what they could have done to a person of color who doesn't maybe have the resources I do or is not widely publicized like my case.
And that is what they're doing to Keith Davis Jr. right now, and why we need to be talking about this. So I'm going to be following this case.